Amongst the crowd that invariably followed Jesus in his preachings at the lake, there was always a woman of rare dedication and noble character who came from Capernaum's high society. She was Joanna, the wife of Chuza, steward of Antipas in the city where vital interests of merchants and fishermen merged together. Joanna had true faith. However, she failed to secure herself from domestic sorrows because her spouse did not accept the enlightenment of the gospel. Given her intimate troubles, the noble woman searched for the Messiah at a time when he rested at Simon's house. Then, she shared with the Messiah the long litany of her hardships and sufferings. Her husband did not tolerate the doctrine of the Master. Herod's high official, who was in constant contact with the representatives of the empire, dispensed his religious preferences sometimes with either the interests of the Jewish community or with the Roman gods, which allowed him to live in easy and profitable tranquility. Joanna confessed to the Master her fears, her struggles and dislikes in the domestic environment, exposing her bitterness in regard to the religious differences existent between her and her companion. After listening to her long enunciation, Jesus pondered.
Joanna, there is only one God, that is our Father. And there is only one faith in our relationship with His love. Certain religious manifestations in the world are often just popular vices in the form of external rituals. All the temples of the earth are made of stone. I come in the name of God to open the temple of living faith in the hearts of human beings. The bloodless battle of spiritual redemption begins between the sincere disciple of the gospel and the millennial errors of the world. Be thankful to the Father, for He has judged you worthy of the good work from now on. Doesn't your spouse understand your sensitive soul? He will understand you someday. Is he reckless and indifferent? Love him anyway. You wouldn't be connected to him if there was no fair reason for that. You will be fulfilling the will of God by serving Him with loving dedication. You talk to me about your fears and your doubts. Based on the gospel, you should love Him even more. The healthy do not need a physician. Moreover, we cannot harvest grapes in the briars, but we can cultivate the soil that produced poison thistles in order to grow there a wonderful vine of love and life.
In the soft glow of her eyes, Joanna let show the inner satisfaction that those clarifications brought to her. But revealing the true state of her soul, she asked,
Master, your word soothes my troubled spirit. However, I face extreme difficulty regarding mutual understanding at home. Wouldn't you think it right that I fight to impose your principles? In doing so, would I not be renewing my husband for heaven and your kingdom?
Christ serenely smiled and replied,
Who would face more difficulty in extending fraternal hands? Would it be the one who reached the safe boundaries of knowledge with the Father, or the one who is still struggling within the waves of ignorance or of desolation, of fickleness or indolence of the Spirit? Regarding the imposition of ideas, I ask you why God does not impose His truth and love to the tyrants of the earth. Why doesn't He strike dead the heartless conqueror spreading misery and destruction with the sinister forces of war? Heavenly wisdom does not exterminate passions, it transforms them. The one who sowed the world with corpses awakes sometimes to God through a simple tear. The Father does not impose reform on His children. He sheds light onto them at the opportune moment. Joanna, the ministry of the gospel is the collaboration with heaven in the great principles of redemption. Be faithful to God by loving your spouse in the world as if he were your son. Do not waste time discussing what is unreasonable. God does not fight battles with His children, but He works in silence, reaching all of His creation. Go. Strive in silence and, when called for clarification, speak the sweet or the energetic word of salvation according to the circumstances. Go back home and love your partner as the divine material that heaven has put into your hands so that you may whittle a piece of life, wisdom and love.
Joanna, wife of Chuza, experienced a mild relief in her heart. Addressing Jesus with a look of affectionate gratitude, she still heard His last words.
Go, my dear. Be faithful.
Since that memorable day in her life, the wife of Chuza experienced, in her soul, the constant clarity of resignation, always ready for the good work and always active to understand God. As the Master's teaching was now indelibly printed in her soul, she considered that, before being a wife on the earth, She was a daughter of that Father, in heaven, that knew her generosity and sacrifice. Her spirit shone a sacred and hidden light in everything she did. She made efforts to forget all her husband's inferior characteristics and only focused on the good ones. At the slightest opportunity, she would support the embryonic development of his faltering eternal virtues. Later, heaven sent her a little boy whose presence doubled her work. However, she never forgot Jesus' recommendations on faithfulness, and she turned her pain into a silent hymn of triumph every day.
Dear Master, I come before you today, humbly seeking your strength and guidance. Life can be challenging, but I know that in you, I can find the strength to face any difficulty that comes my way. You are my rock and my fortress. I know that I can find refuge in you, that I can find solace in your presence. So be it.
Years went by and Joanna's persevering efforts multiplied her assets of faith in the arduous march of knowledge and life. Political persecution shattered the way of life of her companion. Joanna, however, remained firm. Tortured by hateful ideas of revenge and insolvent debts, by hurt vanity, and by diseases that corroded his body, the former quartermaster of Antipas returned to the spiritual plane in a stormy night of shadows. His wife, however, endured the bitterest disappointments, faithful to her divine ideals built on sincere trust. Pressed by tough needs, the noble woman of Capernaum sought after work to make ends meet with the little boy that God had entrusted to her.
Joanna, we can't believe you're working.
Where's your God?
Friends, Jesus worked, callousing his hands with the saws of a modest profession in carpentry. I will continue to devote and submit myself to Christ, as a devoted servant.
Filled with sincere joy, the widow of Chuza forgot the comfort of the material nobility. She devoted herself to the children of other mothers. She busied herself with the most menial household chores so that her little boy had bread. Later, when the snow of the experiences of the world colored in white the first waves of hair on her forehead, a Roman galley took her as a humble servant. In the year 68, when the persecutions of Christians were intensifying, we find, in one of the recurring spectacles of the circus, an old disciple of the Lord tied to the pole of martyrdom next to a young man, who was her son. Before the clamor of the people, the first floggings were ordered.
Abjure!
Exclaims an executioner carrying out his imperial orders with a grim and gloomy look. But the former disciple of the Lord contemplates the sky without a word of complaint or of denial. Then the lash flutters over the half-naked boy who tearfully exclaims,
Repudiate Jesus, my mother! Do you not see we lost it all? Abjure! For me who is your son?
For the first time, the eyes of the martyr had become an abundant spring of tears. The son's solicitations were swords of anguish that shredded her heart.
Abjure! 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 Mother!
Joanna heard those cries while recalling her whole existence. The cheery and festive home, the hours of bliss, the domestic troubles, the maternal emotions, her husband's failures, his despair and his death, her widowhood, her grief and the toughest demands. Then, before the desperate pleas of her little boy, she recalled that Mary had also been a mother. Seeing her Jesus crucified on the cross of infamy, Mary learned to abide to the divine designs. Above all her memories, the most supreme joy of her life was still when she heard the Master in Peter's house, saying,
Go, daughter. Be faithful.
So, taken by superhuman strength, the widow of Chuza contemplated the first bloody victim. And, addressing the young boy with a deep and inexpressible gaze, in her pain and tenderness, she firmly said,
Be quiet, my son. Jesus was pure and did not disdain the sacrifice. Let us know how to suffer in the painful hour, because, above all transient happiness of the world, we must be faithful to God.
At that time, to the delirious applause of the people, the executioners set fire onto the firewood soaked in flammable resin around her. Within moments, the flames licked her aged body. Joanna, wife of Chuza, serenely contemplated the crowd of people who did not understand her sacrifice. The muffled groans of pain died in her oppressed chest. The executioners of the martyr surrounded her with insults.
Has your Christ only taught you how to die?
Asked one of the executioners. Focusing on her resilience, the old disciple still had the strength to whisper,
Not just to die, but also to love you.
At that moment, she felt that the comforting hand of the Master gently touching her shoulder, and she heard the loving and unforgettable voice.
Joanna, take heart. I am here.